Welcome to the Dating Mechanics Show. Today, our guest is Dana Watson. She is a best-selling author of Life After Divorce, a TEDx speaker, a master emotional wellness coach, and she's also the founder of Elevate Health and Wellness. We're talking about how to express emotions and learn self-regulation on the show today, so come on and join us right after these messages. Thank you for tuning in to the Dating Mechanics Show. Don't forget to check out our ice cream. No, not that ice cream, but ice massage cream. Our Silky Shea formula not only soothes and relaxes, but also keeps your skin deeply moisturized. It's perfect for those intimate massage sessions with your partner or simply as a luxurious self-care treat. Want to support the show? You can purchase Ice Massage Cream easily on Amazon or just head over to thedatingmechanic.com.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, turn on your ears and open up your heart because you know dating each other out here today is definitely a fine art. So, to get us off to a great start, please welcome the one and only dating mechanic herself, Miss Alicia Bennett.
Well, hey, Miss Dana, how is it going?
Hey, I am so happy to be here on today.
I know. I'm so glad. We've done some virtual podcasts before, but of course, being in person is always a great thing so that we can vibe off of each other and just have a good time. You know, girlfriends like to get together and just do the things that they do, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We have been talking for a while now about doing a show together and talking about all the things that you do. Number one, you are a best-selling author. So we definitely want to talk about that. But first, give us a little introduction into emotional wellness and what that is about.
Okay, so just a little bit of my background of how I ended up here. So I am a survivor of domestic violence, and I started coaching at a time where it wasn't really a popping thing. Like, it wasn't that popular. Like, there's a lot of coaches these days, but when I started, I went through a lot of names. Like, I used to call myself a transitional coach, and people used to think I was working with people who were dying to transition. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. But the reason why I call myself a transitional coach is because I wanted to help individuals who were experiencing toxic relationships, domestic violence victims, transition from unhealthy relationships to healthy relationships, or even to escape those relationships and just learn to live on their own. So that's how I started. And then I went to health coaching school, learned more about the mind, the body, the spirit, being more holistic with my coaching, and just try to find myself with it. But I've always been one to help people with emotions and healing. And so recently I've called myself a master emotional wellness coach. I do have my master coaching certification. I have the education to back it up, but I always just wanted to target the emotions because the way we do one thing, we do all things. And I truly believe that we heal from the inside out.
So you said something that is, I get kickback all the time on social media when I say, right, is that how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Absolutely.
And people do not understand. They get offensive and say, no, it depends on this and that and the other. But to be honest with you, we are creatures of habit.
Absolutely.
And so if we're doing something this way, we're going to revert back to doing that in everything that we do. If you see the way that, you eat,
right,
the way, that you exercise or don't exercise, whatever, your work ethic, whatever is going on in your life, you can relate those things to other things that are happening in your life. So thank you for saying that. You said you are a survivor of domestic violence.
Yes.
And how does that play a role in how you relate to your clients when we're talking about emotions and regulating your emotions?
Right. So being a survivor of domestic violence, and I always believe that, you can help anybody, but it's nothing like a person who has experienced what their clients have gone through, but sometimes you can be re-triggered. So that's one thing that I go through as a coach, and understanding that healing is a journey. Like, there is no end date to healing. Like, you are constantly having to relearn, new habits, and relearn what you need to do when you are in new relationships, because you're dealing with different people. So sometimes you feel like you've mastered that healing, those strategies, like this helped me in this relationship. I learned this. And so now moving on to a new relationship, it's like, oh no, I'm dealing with somebody different and I'm getting re-triggered. Mm-hmm. So going through that experience myself has helped me to be able to help my clients and to be able to say, hey, okay, I get it. Understanding that we have to look at things from different perspectives, but understanding that sometimes we do have to go back to point one, or go back to that beginning place of the whole healing cycle, because it's constantly going on. But understanding that if you have that accountability partner, that support in that system, it is doable. It is possible for you to continue your healing journey.
And that's the one thing I love about coaching, and that differentiates us from coaching and therapy, is that not only are we're side by side with you. Right. We're not telling you what to do. We're not, trying to diagnose you, but we're walking beside you and we're holding you accountable for the things that you said you want to do. Right. Not the things that we want for you, but the things that you say you want in your life. And we're saying, hey, don't you remember when we were here, when you were here before? Is that really the road that you want to continue to go down? And then we are able to encourage them that way. Right. So yes, absolutely on the fact that coaches, are your accountability partner. Yes. We had Malira Green on the show a couple of episodes ago. And honey, if you have not seen that episode, make sure you go back and watch that show, because we talked about trauma.
Yes, Malira is an awesome coach.
Absolutely. Yes, and we talked about trauma, and she explained trauma to us, and then us talking about how we are triggered. And so when you're saying, healing is a journey. And so there are going to be things that trigger us, and it may be the same thing that triggers us. It doesn't mean that we are not healing from the thing, or that we don't recognize that that something is happening with us. Is how we respond.
That's the word right there.
So now, tell me, how do you help your clients understand how to regulate their emotions so that th're not responding in ways that, are detrimental to them, to the relationship, to the partner, and it's things that they can't take back?
Well, the first thing is they have to be able to understand their feelings and what emotions they are experiencing at the moment. So when I created my Express Yourself flashcards, and we'll talk about that later, the reason why I decided to create them was because I work with early learners. And I was working with this one particular child. He's like 4 years old. And I would ask him, how are you feeling? Because he would begin having these temper tantrums and he would throw things. And when you see a person throwing things, what's the first feeling that you think they are experiencing?
Anger.
But he would say he was scared. And it's like his behavior was not matching what he felt like he was feeling. And I would say, no, you're not scared. You're angry. And I understood that these children at the age of 4, they really didn't know about emotions and feelings. So that's why I created the flashcards. But then as I thought deeper about it, when you're angry and you are having temper tantrums, you are throwing items, you're yelling and screaming, sometimes the root cause can be fear. It can be that you're scared. And it's like, we don't know much about feelings like we thought we did. And so once we have an understanding of what we're really feeling, then we can really communicate with our partner. This is what I am feeling, because you should always use I statements.
Correct.
When talking about your feelings. And then your partner can get a better understanding of, you know what, this isn't even about me. This is something that she or he has going on. But if you can't communicate how you're feeling, then it causes like more issues and more conflict in that relationship.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things in relationships is the communication. But as you said, added to that is that what we say effective communication, right? How are you explaining what it is that you're feeling so that you can see a change with the things that your partner is doing? Right? If you can't explain why this thing is upsetting you or that it is upsetting you, then your partner can't stop doing the thing that is upsetting you.
And I had a friend who would always say, you can tell me how you feel, but I am not responsible for your feelings.
Correct.
Like, if you're happy, I'm not responsible for that. So if you're sad or angry, I am not responsible for that. We are responsible for our own feelings, and we're responsible for how we respond to those feelings. But of course, you do want to be with a partner who can understand and listen. So yes, there is a responsibility on both ends, but when it comes to your feelings and how you respond to those feelings, that is all on you.
Absolutely. Once again, I love when coaches come on the show. Like, y'all are my favorite guests because we get to reiterate the things that that as healers,
Right.
whether you're a therapist or coach or, you know, when we're saying the same things, we get to get people to understand that it's not just one person that's saying it. I'm not saying it because it's a buzzword or it's something that this is what's happening.
Yeah.
But yes, it's very interesting that when we are trying to express emotions, that we go back to that childlike place when we don't understand our emotions or when we're trying to express them.
Right.
And so you said you work with children and helping them express their emotions, but say you had a couple and so one of the couple is having a hard time really expressing how they're feeling. How do you help them with that?
Right. So what you touched on about the reason why I do work with kids and I enjoy working with kids is because we are creatures of habits. Once we become adults, it is so hard to rewire our brains. So it's like, okay, in order for me to touch the adults, to reduce domestic violence, to help improve communication in relationships, I realized that I had to go younger and younger and younger. Where now I'm working with these 4-year-olds and these 5-year-olds because they can rewire their brains a little bit better than we can once we hit adulthood.
Yes.
Once we hit adulthood, we are bucking because we don't want to change. And sometimes we feel like we're changing, but we're really not changing.
Right.
And so some of the things that I do with working with adults when they are in relationships is one, to help them to slow down because we move so fast. And so sometimes we aren't really speaking to be understood because we speak and then the person who's listening, they're just listening to respond, but not listening to understand. And so giving these little small rules like, okay, when someone speaks to you and they're trying to explain how they feel, instead of responding immediately, let's try to count to 10. Process what the person said, paraphrase the act of listening, say, speaking back, this is what I hear you saying. And then you allow that person to say, yes, that's what I said. Process it again, and then respond. By the time you do all of that, you're slowing down your brain, and then you can respond appropriately.
And then you don't have to be so angry. And
Right.
so, whatever emotions that you're feeling.
Right.
When you are in either argument or you're talking with somebody and they're saying stuff, this is what I realized. Like you said, people are not really listening. They're just waiting for their chance to say whatever they want to say. But in that same token, it's like we don't give the other person, we want them to respond right away.
Right.
And we never give them those 10 seconds to say something. If they don't say something fast enough, they're lying. If they don't say something fast enough, they're, they're not caring for our feelings, or they're not listening to, are you listening to me?
Right.
Type of thing. So when you're in, talks with someone, argument, whatever, give them the time to respond to what it is you're saying. And that may be more than 10 seconds.
Right. Right. And
because
that's what I call a timeout.
Everybody processes information differently.
Yes. Yes. And timeouts are good. They're very beneficial. And so when I'm talking about a timeout is if there is a heated conversation or argument and a person does say, you know what, I need some time to, take a deep breath, go outside, take a walk. Now you always want to come back within 24 hours and go back to that conversation. You don't want to just dismiss it and leave it alone. You always want to come back to it because you do want to let the other person know that their feelings, they do matter. And the information is important. But timeouts are needed. The same way we have to sometimes put kids in timeout or cool down areas. Like, okay, you go over there, you think about what you did. Like, so
Right.
just using that word. But I think it's so important that whoever you choose to be with, that you have a conversation before this incident, before the episode, to say, this is how we're going to handle conflict. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of relationships. There's no problem solving and there's no conflict resolution. And we really have to treat relationships like businesses when it comes to being professional. Like, yes, you could be relaxed and comfortable, but think about how you speak to your supervisor. Like, you're not like just going off lid and fussing and yelling. You take the time to respond because you will always want to be seen as being respectful. And I believe that your spouse, your significant other, they deserve respect just as much as that supervisor deserves respect.
Yes, absolutely. Because the consequences of that would be that you would lose your job, you know, you would be reprimanded, whatever the case may be. Why don't we see relationships the same?
Right.
Right? If you go off at the handle, something's going to be lost.
There's going to be a consequence for it.
Correct. So why would we treat our partners that way? Yeah, absolutely. It's it's interesting. It's always interesting to me that when we talk about relationships, we don't like anybody. If you follow me on social media and I find out that you're getting married, oh, you got the ring and you got the ring and you're showing it to everybody on social media. My first thing to do, and I know they don't want to hear this, first thing I do is jump in your inbox and say, hey, see that you got married, getting married, congratulations, and all of the good things, right? And I go, hey, you know, it would be great for you to do some premarital coaching before you go down the aisle. And that's where that communication, learning how to deal with one another when things happen, understanding that, okay, I'm going to need that timeout.
Right.
I'm going to need that 24 hours because this is how I process information. I love the 24-hour thing. I would say to people as well, even if you yes, come back within that 24 hours, but even if you need a little bit more time, say, listen, I don't want to have this thing linger, you know, but I need a little bit more time.
But keyword, you still come back and say,
absolutely.
All right, we're hitting the 24-hour mark.
Absolutely.
I want to let you know I did not forget about what you said, but we will talk about this. That's important.
So Bay and I have this thing where we're like, okay, if we are really upset with each other and we don't, you know, we walking past each other and we're not saying anything, you know, all that kind of stuff is going on, right? We just being silly. After day 3, we have to come to the couch.
Okay.
And we have to sit. And we have to, and it doesn't matter. At that point, it doesn't matter who comes to the couch first. That doesn't even matter. That doesn't even, because you know how sometimes when you like, I don't want to be the first one.
Right.
I don't want to be the first one. You know,
like the
you're playing that game of chicken, right?
First, yes.
Right, exactly. On day 3, it doesn't even matter. We're not keeping score in that way on day 3. It doesn't matter. So it makes you, I think for us, you want to be the one that comes first on day 3, right? Because then you're the mature one and you're the adult, right? And you're the one that wants to get the thing, you know, over and done with. And so that's something that we made up within our relationship. And everybody can have their own thing that they, you know, have made up.
Yeah, I will fold in a minute because I don't even know if I would make it to day 3. Day 2, I'm at the couch because we need to
talk about this right here.
Yes.
Sometimes some issues are just that big.
Right.
But it isn't even about that. It's about having the plan. And you can come to the couch before.
Right.
You can come to the couch on day 1 and be like, look, I'm not arguing with you no more about this thing. Let's go ahead and talk about it, right? But at least you have some type of plan.
It's a strategy.
Correct. About how you're going to come back together.
Right.
And you're going to talk about whatever it is that needs to be talked about. And I think 3 days is enough time to really think about, you know, get all the advice you need if you need to go talk to your mama, your therapist, or whoever you need to talk to say, okay, I'm okay with this. And putting down your points of discussion and all these things so that you really can, you know, hash the thing out.
Right.
Right. So you do have these cards.
Yes.
And the cards are Express Yourself flashcards, emotional vocabulary for children. And you created these cards so that kids would have an opportunity to learn how to express themselves. So tell
Right.
me what's in this pack that people can buy for
Yeah.
themselves.
So I should have opened it for you, but but basically talking about the feelings, but I really wanted to focus on the 5 major feelings for our younger ones: happy, sad, angry, scared, and excited. Like those are the feelings that can cover, all those emotions that our kids experience. Then I was able to break down each word, like, so they can learn some other vocabulary words when it comes to happy. But once they realize what feeling they are experiencing, what do I do with these feelings? Because if I'm telling my mom that I'm angry and she's not saying what to do with it, then I'm just going to take control and take matters into my own hand, and I'm going to punch a hole in the wall. But as a parent, using these flashcards, your child can pick the card that says, I am angry, and they can choose to go into their bedroom to get a teddy bear. Maybe hugging a teddy bear feels good. Maybe dancing or laughing with a friend. And so it has so many different self-regulation skills that they can learn, that they not only learn to use in the home, but then they can take it to school, use it in the classroom. I found children with autism. The parents have told me that these cards have been very helpful for them because they're nonverbal. So it helps to improve communication in the household.
That's great. I love that. So how do you help? So you're helping the children in understanding their feelings. How do you then help the parents? Because I know there has to be some parents where you're like, I understand why this child cannot express their emotions because they haven't been taught, or there's something that the parents are not creating that atmosphere for.
Right.
So now how do you, do the parents, do they all just learn together, or you have it where you're showing the parents, okay, this is what you do when that child says they're angry?
Right. So having a session with parents and children, it depends on what I'm observing and based on notes. Like if the parent is having difficulty expressing their own emotion along with the child, then they might have a session together, and then individually. I might work with the parent because like we both know about generational trauma. Like we become who our parents are. And no matter how hard we try to fight it, like I grew up in a household with yelling. It was 6 kids, my both parents, mom and dad, but everybody really just talked very loud and we spoke over each other. We yelled, we screamed. So that was normal for me. And then I have 2 kids and it's not normal to them. They're like, Mom, why are you screaming? And I'm like, oops. No, they didn't just check me. Right? But I would say I'm not screaming, but to them, my tone was saying that I was screaming. Like I wouldn't even be angry or upset, but because I was so used to it, to them, I was screaming.
Okay.
And because my children are more emotionally aware than I was at that age, it was easier for them to identify it. And so teaching parents like, okay, I need you to acknowledge, one, your trauma that you experienced as a child. Like, what did your childhood look like? Now ask yourself, was that normal or was it abnormal? Like, I didn't even know I grew up in a dysfunctional home until I was in my 20s because that was so normal to me. And then once you begin to see what a normal, nobody's really normal, but what's considered to be healthy, I'll use that word instead, a healthy family dynamic, then you can be more intentional about what you want your family to look like.
Correct.
And so asking them, what do you want your child to do now? I need you to model that for your child.
Yeah, and that's like you said, it's rewiring.
It's rewiring
and changing habits and behavior, and that's really difficult for people who are not wanting to really do that. They don't want to take that extra step, but we got
it's a lot of work.
It
sounds easy to say, I'm not going to scream, I'm not going to yell.
Oh, honey,
but
my kids used to say all the time, why are you yelling?
Our kids are different. They're so much different than like you said, the way we were.
Yes, and like you said, I would be like, I'm not yelling. Or I would have to say, okay, yeah, I'm yelling. But I'm not angry.
Right.
I just want you to do the thing that I want you to do. I've said it like 5 times. I want you to do the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so just realizing, okay, you don't have to yell in order for them to do the same.
Right. And they have
Different
this new
techniques.
thing, the gentle parenting. And I'm all for being therapeutic and gentle with our kids.
About that.
However, you are still going to get these consequences. And because we still have to teach kids about rules, about being respectful.
Absolutely.
And boundaries. And so understanding that being a gentle parent is taking the time to listen to your child, allowing your child to ask questions for understanding, but not being disrespectful, not letting them get away with just everything. Yeah. You still have to be the authoritative figure that your child needs. So,
because on the other hand of that, then if they don't respect you, then that's a whole other issue that they grow up with, and a whole other trauma, right?
Yes.
It's like, well, my mom didn't enforce any rules. Well, you broke every one. You know what I mean? So what did you expect me to do? So yeah, it's parenting is not easy.
It's not.
I don't think it's supposed to be easy for the simple fact that we're unlearning things from our childhood.
A lot.
And we're still growing ourselves.
Right.
Like a lot of us, I was a parent at 21? So there are things like you said, you didn't know that your household was dysfunctional, right? There's a lot of things that we learn through our children and through parenting. And I think it's supposed to be like that. We're not supposed to shy away from those things. We're supposed to embrace them and say, oh, wow, didn't know that about myself.
Yeah.
The
goal is that our children feel safe and they feel secure in our household, but not for them to control the house.
That's huge. Like you said, a huge thing just now, because like you said, even with gentle parenting, it's like when we switch the roles around of parent and child and letting them have control of what's going on within. Yes, you let your child get choices, so that you can teach them about what they like and don't like, and and teach them boundaries in that way, and what to let people do to them and not, and sacred places and those types of things. But we cannot let them have so much control that we're always the student and they're telling us what to do.
They're parenting us.
Right. Like that's not how that works. Yeah. Although I have three moms.
Okay.
I have my mother, right? And then my two girls. So I have three moms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my daughter, she thinks she's my mom.
Yeah, I have three moms. I'm okay with saying that. If they're watching, I'm okay with saying that. I'm gonna let them think that they that they're my mom. But it's so interesting. Whenever something is going on with me, and like my mom or somebody else in the family is like, "What's going on with Alicia? We don't know what's going on." They'll be like, "Lisa, go see what's going on with your mom." It's like, wait, hold on. How's she gonna cut? Okay, anyway, it's a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing. But I think, our kids are so precious. They know us. And sometimes they know us because of habits. They know us better than we know ourselves.
Right. And I'm pretty sure with you doing your job, your coaching, like they are learning so much more because they're watching. And so we are modeling, even if we're not even trying to model, they are going to watch us. But guess what? They are going to break these generational traumas and these patterns that, we had a difficult time getting out of.
Yes.
Because we may not have had that role model, but they have the role model. So.
And people think that because we say we're coaches and, we've gone to school for it and we have all the knowledge and education and we're not supposed to do this or that, or we're supposed to know better and all of these things. Coaching is the greatest thing that I've ever done because it allows me to see me through my clients, through, other people every single day.
Right.
And it allows me to be accountable, and it allows me to look at myself and say, hey, is this the person that I truly want to be? Is this who I want to be going forward, right?
Yeah.
Because I may have done that yesterday and the day before.
Right.
But now that I know today, do I want to be that person tomorrow? And being able
That's a good question
and
to
being
ask yourself.
and if we ask ourselves that, daily or whenever something comes up, is this the person I want to be tomorrow? What can I change today to not be that person tomorrow?
Right.
It just makes it's not a blaming. It's not a I'm this way because let's take away all of that. Because all we're doing is trying to push away the healing and push away why are we doing that?
Right. I think
fix the thing.
Just listening to what you say, I think it just reminds you that there's always room to grow. Like we have never arrived. Like you hear people say, I have arrived. Like if you have arrived to your destination, then there's a problem because there's always room to elevate. But you always have to provide yourself with grace as well because understanding that no one is perfect. No one is perfect. And so we're going to make mistakes in life. We're going to make mistakes in our relationships, even as coaches. We make mistakes and sometimes we look at ourselves and we are harder on ourselves because we know better. Like we know the information and it's like, why do I keep doing that? That's because we are dealing with the same, I'm going to say demons. We're dealing with the same demons like everybody else. And so once you realize and take, just real acceptance that we are who we are and we make mistakes, we have flaws, but own up to it and say, what do I, goes back to your question, what can I do to work on myself to improve? That's why I would never judge anyone based on their mistakes that they've made in their life. I always give room for people to grow. People can change. And I still believe that people can change.
Absolutely.
But they have to want it.
Exactly. And I believe as you do that people can change when they get ready to change.
When they get ready.
And it doesn't have to take years or, eons. Or if you decide, like I did, when I was in junior high, I decided first year junior high, I no longer am going to eat pork. I haven't had pork to my knowledge. Right. Pork is in everything.
Yes.
I haven't had pork to this day.
Wow.
So we can decide,
Mm-hmm.
right, exactly. We can decide to say, that thing is no longer serving me.
Right.
And I'm no longer going to participate in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We can definitely do that. But yeah, it's like I said, I don't want people to feel like coaches know it all. We are going through the same journey that you're going through. We may know a little bit more than you do because we're working on ourselves consistently and constantly, but it's not that we know everything.
We don't.
We can't.
We don't.
Because there are things that we have not experienced. We've yet to experience. And when we experience those things, we'll be able to help somebody else get through it.
And life changes. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. So that's why I am constantly learning because as we're learning on terminologies when it comes to coaching and relationships, healing, like narcissistic was the word a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Now it's gaslighting. But things change and we have to stay in the know. So we have to constantly keep learning so we can help our clients. But,
I like to liken it like, okay, so if we start, say we've never colored before, and we start coloring, our color pages are going to look different tomorrow, the next day, a month from now, 2 years from now. They're going to look different than when we started. And that's life.
Right.
And that's how we're supposed to progress through life. A lot of times people, I don't think they don't focus. Like if you're coloring and you're focusing on staying in the lines today, or you're focusing on shading. You're focusing on, you know what I mean? Like shading, you shady girl. You do the outside, but you're not going to use shade on the inside. All the things. But if we didn't practice that and say, you know what? I want my picture to look better.
Right.
Let me work on this.
Right.
So that as I continue to color, it looks better to me.
And it's a matter of taking your time with it.
Yes.
When you rush, that's when you scrabble outside the lines. But when I decided that I wanted my pictures to look better and I would trace, it took time.
It took time.
And that's the same thing with healing. It takes time. When you rush, guess what? You're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Yes.
So you got to take time and slow down.
Slow down. Yes, absolutely. So you are in the school system. Which school do you?
Well, I work for Hampton City
Schools.
Yes.
And how do you find the the children in the school system, do you find that they can regulate their emotions well? Or is it something that, you have to kind of work with them in order to, I mean, and I say that because, of course, my podcast is for everybody.
Right.
However, I do focus on the African American community because sometimes not sometimes, we are the ones that lack, in different areas. We don't get that attention.
Right.
And we know, that's generational.
Right.
So, and being that Hampton is predominantly African American. So, how do you find the children there and how they regulate their emotions?
So I'm no longer working specifically in one school as I was when I first started. So I was working at one school, which was an early learning center for 4-year-olds, so just pre-K, and that was it. And now I am the intervention coordinator, so I work with all of the schools in Hampton. So that has given me a broader range of children that I'm working with. What I realize is that, yes, some of our kids, they do have self-regulation skills. So there is a small percentage of kids that I work with who are like really struggling in that area. And I find that we as adults, sometimes teachers, I say that, they can trigger the kids. I've always learned that when it comes to trauma-informed care, being, trauma-focused, you treat every single child as if they've experienced trauma because we just don't know.
Right.
A lot of kids can't explain what's going on at home. And so when they come to school, they come into the classroom, you ask them to sit down, and that child says no. And it's like, why are you saying no? Like, there's no reason for you to say no. And you get upset because you just feel like this child should be listening. And so instead of taking the time to have that one-to-one with the kid, you end up, I say, getting into power struggles with the kids, and that kind of like sets them off. And so I've been doing trainings with the kids, but more with the teachers, so that they can understand and that they can get the strategies to work with these kids who have, the low self-regulation skills.
And like you say, you don't know the kids that are coming into your classroom, unless you've taught them all the way through, or you have their siblings, you really don't know that household and what's going on in there.
Right.
So, this is a great conversation on regulating your emotions because, like I said, this is something that is huge. We talk about emotional intelligence. We talk about, trauma and those things, but really understanding what even emotion are you feeling right now. Right. And it's so funny because at the beginning, but mostly at the end, it just depends on what my client is doing at the time. If they come in rushing to their appointment, then I kind of try to slow them down.
Right.
And I ask them, what are you feeling right now? Give me one word. What are you feeling right now? And sometimes I'll do that at the end of the session. If it's been a little difficult session, what are you feeling right now? And some people will tell me, even though this session was difficult for them, they'll say, I'm relieved, or
just to let it go.
Yeah, to let it go, or that came out, or that you held me accountable, or whatever the issue is, right? But it's good to see where people are because you don't want to assume, like I said, I'm thinking it was a hard session for them. And it may have been, but let them use their words to be able to tell that. And then I always say, okay, well, why do you feel relieved? Or why do you feel happy about that, right? So to allow them and give them the opportunity to express why they feel that way. Right. So let's talk a little bit about life after divorce.
Okay.
Because you are a best-selling author. Tell us about the book.
So this book, Life After Divorce, is it's an anthology book. I am the visionary, but I have about 6 other authors of the book. Each person told their story from the beginning, how they met this person. We talked about red flags that we ignored because I am divorced. And we talked about just how life does not end just because you had a divorce. Like for most of us, it's just the beginning, but it's really how you look at life and how you want to start that new chapter. But, some people really do fall into like a deep depression after divorce because it's loss. It's just like death. It's death to a relationship. It's death to a marriage. And if anybody has ever lost a parent, I have, it felt the same. The same way I lost my mom, I lost my dad, and then I went through a divorce. It was grief. and it was very heavy. And I don't care what anyone says. Like a lot of times people say, well, you know what? When I divorced him, in my head, I knew I was leaving him 5 months, 6 months earlier. It does not make it any easier because we're going to go through that grief cycle, anger, sadness, frustration, bitterness, questioning God, why? Then we might be excited, joyful. Oh, I get to find a new man, But then we're going to get angry again.
Absolutely.
Because it's a cycle. And so the same way you go through the cycle of grief, now you have to go through the cycle of healing. You acknowledge your feelings. You accept how you feel. You accept what happened. You forgive, remembering that forgiveness is not for the other person, but it's for you. And if you want to move on, you got to let it go.
Got to let it go.
And so these stories were very helpful. Like some of these individuals, they found true love after the divorce. Like I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, I found the man of my dreams or the woman of my dreams. It was my second marriage. Like the first one didn't exist, And so, but I want to say for those individuals who have been divorced, take your time.
Take your time.
Learn the lessons from that first one.
Boy.
Like, it's crazy if you got married, it didn't work, then you get married again. Like, wait a second, did you learn anything from your first one? Were you healed before you even went into this next relationship? So it's been 4 years for me, and sometimes I'm like, man, I should have been I should have been married by now because I see other people jumping right back into marriages. I'm like, no. I got to make sure I'm ready. My heart has to be ready.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to bleed on somebody else.
Absolutely.
So
it's there are people that, and of course, I talk about this all the time. There are people that are either going through a separation or a divorce, and now they're out there dating. And I think that's very dangerous.
It can be very dangerous.
And I know people say, well, I'm over them and it's been this long and I just want to be out there and I'm ready to be with somebody to love and all of these things. But this is what I tell people who are going through a divorce.
Right.
Be very careful because when you sign those papers, you're going to go through that cycle of death all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you have the divorce party and, you put on the dress and invite all your friends and have the divorce cake and all of the things, even if they were abusive to you, even if whatever went on in the marriage, you're still going to go through the grief of divorce when you finally sign those papers. And now your mind, your heart, everything that's going on is in sync because these papers are now final and signed.
Yeah.
It's very real. Yeah. And a lot of times if we are in relationship with someone else while we're going through this process, we then start to turn, we take a turn, and now either they go on the back burner or you're taking it out on them or you're pulling back.
Suppressing your own feelings.
Correct. Yeah. There's a lot going on. Please, 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 folks, if you are going through a divorce, you can go out and have fun with people and, start to go out to experience dating and stuff like that. But be very mindful of the relationships that you are creating with other people.
Right.
Because at some point when this divorce is said and done, you are going to have a moment. And I'm not saying it's going to break down your world. I'm not saying that, the relationship is not going to work out with that other person. But just know that there is going to be a time where you're going to have to sit with yourself.
Right.
When it's all over.
That's hard. That sitting by yourself to heal is hard.
But a lot of people don't even want, they get with other people because they don't want to be alone. They don't want to sit with themselves to figure out, where did I go wrong?
Right. And it really does take time. I can confess that after my divorce, it was hard for me to be by myself because you're so used. Like I was married for 12 years. So I was used to having a partner. Even though the marriage did not work, it was something about that person that made you fall in love. There was positive and good traits about that person. And so you're going to miss the good things about that person. And you can't just pretend like it didn't happen.
And why would you want to?
Right, right. So if you allow yourself to go through the feelings, like you said, we try to run away from it. We try to hide from it because it hurts so bad. And we think, the whole saying, to get over one man, you get under another man. It does not work. it does not work because those feelings are still there.
Mhm.
So the only way you can get through it is to go through the pain.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. But
But it
sooner or
depends
later,
on
you're going
how
to
you go through
heal.
it.
You're going
Yeah.
to heal from it. And then you learn from it.
Mhm.
And you'll be a better person for the person that you're in a relationship with.
And I think a lot of people, when they go through, and they start thinking about what happened, they start placing blame.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start going through this in our head and not placing blame on us and the other person. Just the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Just the facts. This is what happened. What did I do to contribute to that thing?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I probably could have done this a little bit differently and that differently. I'm going to change this
Right.
so that next time I'm not, doing this in my relationship. The person said this in the relationship. Let me explore if that's the way that I'm
Mm-hmm.
being.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that's the case, let me change it. It doesn't have to
Right.
be where we're, so hard on ourselves for this relationship not being successful. It is successful. It was successful
Right.
if you learn something from it to take to your next
Right.
relationship.
And I always say you both gave the best that you can do. Like, even if, trauma does make us love wrong sometimes. The same way we think about childhood trauma, the way our parents raised us. And sometimes we're angry with our parents because we're like, my mom, my dad didn't show me affection. They didn't do this. They did the best that they could do with what they had and what was given to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's so important that we learn about emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, self-regulation. Because if we don't learn, the cycle continues. We don't show the affection to our kids that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, our kids need love, whether they fight it or not, whether they say they want a hug or not, they need it. Because a child who does not get affection becomes an adult who is emotionally unavailable. Think about it. How many people are so out of touch with, I don't like to be touched. I don't say the words, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why not? And if you're with a person and they're okay with it, it's just two emotionally unavailable people together. It might work for them. So be it. But with a healthy person, that can cause that person to experience low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And it can cause a person who was healed to become triggered. And now they're trying to figure out, why am I so insecure? I was secure coming into this relationship. What's wrong with me? Because now you have matched with a person who's not healed. So it's important that you get with a person who is in touch and in tune with their emotions, especially when you're in the healing journey. That's why it's important that you heal after a divorce, because the pattern continues if you're still hurting and there's still holes in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get to that place and you're like, I'm not getting any affection in this relationship, when did you realize that? Because during the honeymoon stage, you got everything you needed and you missed the signs that were there, but you saw what you wanted to see. You felt what you wanted to feel. And reality is going to kick in.
And it's gonna go from marriage 2 to marriage 3 to marriage 4.
I've seen it, not me, but I have seen
it. and people not realizing that the patterns that they're creating for themselves, and not only the patterns that they're creating for themselves, because we have little ones who are, like you said before, modeling our behavior, and so they're doing the same. They're gonna wind up doing the same things as well. Mm-hmm. Great conversation.
I enjoyed it.
Yes, it's always nice talking with you. And Life After Divorce, get the book, y'all, so that you can hear all the wonderful stories from other divorced people and I love what you said. There are stories of hope in there, not only inspiration, but hope about how they found love again. Mm-hmm. So definitely go look for that book. The cards, tell us where we can get the cards for our children.
Yes, so you can either go to expressyourselfflashcards.com or Dana Watson Coaching.
Okay, and we can get the flashcards from there.
Yes,
definitely. I'm gonna try them out because sometimes, my 10-year-old, he's very soft spoken, and
I'm
sometimes
gonna
he.
gift you that. You
Oh,
take
I
that with
appreciate
you,
that very
and
much,
you
and
and you let me know how you
I will
like them.
let you know how he likes them and how he's expressing his feelings. It has been a
Yes,
pleasure speaking with you.
thank you.
You guys be sure to subscribe. Like, don't just watch the video. Don't just like the video. Go ahead and subscribe so that you can get the ding and you can hear all the things that are coming up. We have some fabulous guests coming up here, and all of my guests are fabulous, and we have a really good time talking about it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you have anything that you like about the show, put it in the comments so other people can start to have a conversation, because that's what it's really all about. We're not just doing this just because we love to talk. We're doing this so that we can create conversations that make us better and help us to live with healthy relationships. So until next time, you have been watching The Dating Mechanic Show.